Hello, Blake Rudice here on day 9 for our 30 for 30 critique sessions in 30 days. We've got F64 Elite member Don Chesnut's image to look at for our critique, and I am very excited about this, but we have an awesome twist and challenge from a good friend of mine, Gary Shira, who's also an F64 Elite member. His twist: incorporate linear light painting and solid color painting into the edit. Okay, this is going to be fun because these are two of my favorite things to do, and I don't do it very often, so thanks, Gary. What you also need to know about Gary: Gary is an F64 Elite member who we have done something this month called a vision session with. I did 2 of these in the past, one with Jay Haller and one with Brian Bokikio. And all of these vision sessions are really unique because it's me and that subscriber taking a really deep dive into one of their images. We uncover the vision from 2 angles, and it's really an interesting way to look at how an image is processed and thought about. And while I love what I've done with the other 2 vision sessions, Gary just blew me away. He's kind of quiet, and what he did with his vision in this image is awesome. So if you're an F64 Elite member, episode 3 of our 6-part series of the vision sessions is coming out on September 17th, and I think you're really going to love what Gary did there. Let's get into the critique because I can't wait to do this. Hey, Don. Don and I go way back. He was actually one of the very first F64 Elite members ever, and he had an image that he submitted for a critique that literally blew me away. I can still remember it. I've critiqued over 3,000 images, and I can still remember Don's image. It was just a very simple image in a forest with a stream next to it. I knew at that point that Don thought about things a little bit differently in photography. He's actually one of the first people to email me every time I come up with a new technique. He emails me and shows me what he's done. I love that he takes everything, puts it right into practical application. Let's get into this critique. Don, this image is powerful. It almost looks like an architectural shot. You know, when you see these monolithic structures that just happen on the earth like this, it almost looks like a skyscraper. It's like the landscape skyscraper. And I see that because what you're doing here is you're creating this sense of dominance for this object. It's just, its presence is huge in this space. It's making the trees that are down below just feel so small in the presence of this large object. Now behind it, you have this ominous looking sky, which creates a very strong presence for this subject. And I really do enjoy the space that you've created for me here. It's this space of just sheer power that we see in the landscape. And I enjoy it. Compositionally, I enjoy that too. I mean, there's not much you can really do with this other than, you know, maybe moving around the landscape and photographing from a lower angle if you could see it from a different angle. But the angle that you're giving me here creates a dominating presence, and I enjoy it. Now, I do have some disconnects, and the main disconnect I have is the sky. It feels like the sky, the color of the sky has like this ultramarine kind of purplish kind of color to it, which to me in reference to color theory is throwing off all of the color that's happening in the foreground of the image. And I think we'll see that as we start to work with this. That's one of the things that I'm going to really work with in the work section there. I also think that the sky contrast is a little bit too dark. And I see that because where the sky meets the foreground, there's this very faint line work. And typically when that happens, it usually means that you're trying to take the sky to a contrast that it doesn't really belong, because it probably was when you shot it was a little bit brighter, because it's not like an HDR process where you're going to get the best of both worlds, where the background's going to have the perfect contrast and so is the foreground. So either that was edited individually, separately from the foreground, that created that. It could be a sky replacement where the sky was added. Those are things that I don't necessarily know, but I do know that that sky contrast feels like it's a little bit too dark, especially in this corner right here. All right, so I need to not only fix this guy in this, I also need to do some linear light painting and some solid color painting. I think you're going to like the direction that goes with this. The first thing, though, I want to fix the contrast in the sky. The thing that I was really talking about there is that if you look right here along the edges of the foreground, when you start to see this little haloing presence here, that usually means that the background or the sky was edited independently from the foreground. Something happened there to do that. And what it creates is almost, it feels like the foreground is like a sticker on top of the background. And we don't want that, because then it just doesn't look natural. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sky selection. So I'm going to go to select, and I'm just going to say select sky. Photoshop does a pretty good job of making that sky selection. I'm not doing a replacement here. I'm just doing a selection, because I'm going to go into the curves now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up this curve. I don't want to pull it up in too many different ways. To make this as natural as possible, I'm just going to grab it right in the midtones and just pull this up to brighten that up a little bit. And you'll see that as I brighten it, that also matches the brightness that's happening on the front of our subject, doesn't it? Okay, so I like that. Now, what I also have the opportunity for is to change the color of the sky. Now, I like the sky, but to me, it has kind of this like almost ultramarine blue, almost on the realm of purple color to it. So in the curve, I'm just gonna paint that sky with the color curve. So I'm gonna go into the blue curve first and just incorporate a little bit more blue into that sky. Just a little bit, just pop that up just a little bit. Now that's gonna really make that feel more on that ultramarine or purple side. You're really gonna see that there, aren't you? So let's go ahead and go into the red now. Now I don't wanna put red in here because that'll make it even worse and really unnatural. I'm gonna incorporate a little bit of cyan. Just pull that in and then boom, look at how that gets that more bluish color rather than that ultramarine color, which I think starts to help pull out the oranges that are happening in the foreground. And this is a color theory thing, guys. Watch this. I want you to just look at the image, okay? Just narrow your vision onto the foreground of this image. Now I'm gonna turn this curve off and then I'm gonna turn it back on. I want you to see how the tonal presence and the color presence changes in the foreground, even though we did absolutely nothing to the foreground. Watch. You see how it gets darker? It almost appears more red, doesn't it? Now watch this. I'm going to turn this on. Doesn't this appear brighter and the orange more lively? What's happening here? This is color theory happening right now in front of us. Before, the tonal darkness here is making everything in the foreground feel darker. And because this has more of an ultramarine or purplish type of blue to it, that is favoring the reds that are happening in this. And it's hard to see a separation between this color of red here and what's happening here in this orange along the edge. Watch this. I turn this on. This almost appears like it's getting whiter and lighter and brighter. We haven't done anything to the foreground, folks. This is color theory working right in front of you. I love it when color theory works right on the palette. So now what I need to do is I need to increase the intensity of the colors here. So thankfully, Gary suggested this. I probably wouldn't have done it unless he did. But what I do is something called solid color painting and linear light painting. And sometimes that can even be vivid light painting. We can just call that blend mode painting for the most part. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a solid color onto this. And that solid color, I'm going to change it to a color that is in the image. But in order to do this, I'm going to drop the fill down to 0. So now when I double click on this color, I can actually click any color that I want in this. So I'm going to click a color that is going to favor these red oranges here. So I'll click that color right there and maybe make it a little bit on the lighter side because I want to brighten this up as I use it. Okay. So now what I can do is increase my fill to about 15%. And I'm going to change this to the vivid light blend mode. Now this will give you an idea of what we're going to see. But what are we doing here? Our sky looks like it did before, doesn't it? So I'm going to press Command or Control I. And then once I have that selected, B for the brush tool. And then I'm just going to start brushing here with white on areas that I want to get this color back on. Now, I like to use these brushes that I have inside the visionary panel because they move very slow. If you were to go on YouTube and type Blake's Brilliant Blender brushes, you'll find all 10 of them in a YouTube video that even shows you how I made them. But they're stored right here in the panel. So I'm going to click this one because it's a really great blending brush, so it doesn't work too fast. So now, B for the brush tool, make my brush a little bit larger, and then I'm just going to brush with white in areas where I want this color to come back. All right, so you're probably not going to see much of anything happening right now. And that's exactly how I want it to be. This is kind of like a vignette. If the viewer can see that you have a vignette on your image, you failed. If the viewer can see that you painted in this light, you failed. So I'm painting this on areas where I want that reddish orange to come out a little bit more, and just looking around the image and seeing what speaks to me about where this red orange should come out, okay? Now, this, like I said, as I'm painting this on here, you're probably like, Blake, you are crazy. I don't even see anything. And, you know, that's all fine and well. But watch when I turn this off. Turn it off, turn it on. Ooh, look at that. You see that? Now, what I can also do with this is I can increase the fill. If it's at 15%, it's not doing much. Look at how the increase in this helps. Now, why am I using Vivid Light? I like to use Vivid Light because it's basically a very similar version of linear light, but the way Vivid Light works is it adds a little bit more contrast to your colors while you do it. So what I feel like is it mimics the light of the sun. So I'll turn that to Vivid Light, and that looks pretty good right there like that. Now, I only want this to be on the lightest light areas and not on the darkest dark areas. So how do I do that when it's within a mask? Well, that's where you would intersect a luminosity mask. And I'm just going to cheat because I have this button right here where if I press plus luminosity mask, it will automatically put the luminance data inside our mask. So as we paint that, it really just helps. If we look at our history palette here, it's just going to help that go into only the lightest light areas and keep it from going into the darkest dark areas. So now the other method of this is where we actually use just a straight up clear layer. Okay. And with this layer, again, we can change this to either vivid light or linear light. For this one, I'll use linear light. And I'm going to drop the fill down to 15%. And the way I like to work with this is I'm ambidextrous when it comes to the computer. So my left hand is usually on the mouse and my right hand is usually in my pen. So what I do with my left hand when my right hand is working is I hold the Alt or Option key. I just put my index finger over the Alt or Option key and I can sample colors throughout the image. So I can sample, let's say this color right here, and then start brushing this color on that area. And that's going to make that color get a little bit more lively and vibrant. We are literally forcing this color into the image, and it's really quite unique when we do this. And then I can brush that along this edge here, along this edge here, this edge here. And why I like this is because as I'm working on this, I can press Alt or Option and maybe choose a bluish color and then just start painting some blue into the sky to make certain areas of the sky get a little bit more blue than they were before. Okay, and I can brush this around. And again, it's not going to look like I'm doing a whole lot. That's because my fill is at 15%. If you really want to see what this is going to look like, bring your fill up really high. Okay, that'll help you see where this stuff is going, and then you slowly taper it down to get the light how you want it on your image. Okay, see that? Now with this, again, it's going to be one of those things where I don't necessarily want that to be on the darkest dark areas of my image. So what do I do? Okay, well, what I can do here is I can go into Blend If. I could use a luminosity mask or I could use Blend If. That's the beauty of Photoshop. A lot of people think that you have to be pigeonholed into one technique, and you don't have to be. So what I'm going to do here is make sure that this doesn't affect the darkest dark areas with my Blend If panel and just pull this over, okay? And if I want to see that, I can turn the overlay on to see where that effect is going to take place. So right now, it's all over the image. Right here, start to see those areas come through, and then I'll feather it in, okay? And then I turn that overlay off and I don't see it anymore. That's the beauty of the Blend If panel. It's phenomenal. And if you're an F64 Elite member, it's in your subscription in the courses section. So I can bring this up a little bit higher if I want to, or change it to something like Vivid Light if I want to change the blend mode. But this is blend mode painting. Look at the light that puts on there. Because when we have the light from the sun so strong at, midday, afternoon or whatever, it's hitting this area. This is going to be brighter. So when we bring in color with it, look at how that just livens up a little bit. With that sky background, look at that. We just changed that a little bit. Now this does look like a stormy sky background right now. And this looks like a more happy, uplifting background. So that's really going to be up to the artist on how they want that to be. If you want it to look stormy, I would do it this way. But that would mean not using my adjustment at all with the curve there. But I would recommend putting on some light painting here to really bring that out. And you could always drop the opacities of these if they're too strong. So usually on a YouTube video, I would go a little bit higher so that you can actually see it happening. Because sometimes in these videos, if you don't show something really happening, people are like, that didn't do anything. It's like, well, you don't get the point here. It's a slow build-up process. All right, so great stuff. Thank you so much, Don. It was a real pleasure looking at your image. I'm really enjoying the showcase image that we have here from F64 Elite member Carla Meeske. This is awesome. I've seen a lot of Milky Way shots in my time of doing critiques on F64 Elite, and they're pretty hard to balance. They're hard to balance the foreground with the background to make the foreground look engaging and interesting while having this amazingly epic backdrop behind it. It's kind of like photographing a gorgeous sunset. Sometimes that sunset can just make any foreground pale in comparison, or vice versa. Sometimes the foreground can make the sky pale in comparison. But I think there's a beautiful balance between the two here. And you've just created a really unique place for me to enjoy as a viewer. I think I really enjoy the juxtaposition of the deeper blues in the sky and then the warmer oranges in the foreground with that beautiful pink transition in between with just the right amount of highlight where highlight needs to be. I think you've done a wonderful job with this Milky Way photo, and I'd be proud to call this one my own. So wonderful, wonderful work, and thank you for sharing this with us. As you're watching these critiques, you might be thinking to yourself, man, I wish I could just open up my images and get to a point where I could see them just like this. And the thing is, you can. All right. I've created something called the self-critique guide. And with this self-critique guide, I've taken all of the things that I think about, the subjective things that I think about, or seemingly subjective things that I think about, and I've made them objective so that you can ask yourself 4 reflection questions. And when you ask yourself these very specific questions, it'll help you dial in your vision. And then while you're editing your image, before, during, or after, you could run this 6-step self-critique checklist. And between the reflection questions and the 6-step checklist, I think you'll find that you'll be making much better adjustments to your images as you work, because you'll be thinking about the things that matter. Not the technique that you learned last week on YouTube, but how is this image going to connect with my viewer? And that's the important stuff. So if you're interested, there's a link in the description below, the self-critique guide. When you click that link, it'll take you to a page. You put your email in there and you'll be able to download my self-critique guide. This is a 22-page PDF, a very thoughtful PDF. I didn't just throw this together. This took me a couple days to put together. I also recorded 2 critique style videos of my own images that will help you see what I do when I'm editing my images. And then at the very end, I'll wrap it up and I'll talk about critiquer and critiquee responsibilities before I let you go. You can print this 22-page PDF, keep it right next to your workspace so that you will always know the direction you want for your work. And just know that any download of this puts 50 cents towards Give Kids Art. So if you'd like to critique yourself like I critique these images, grab that guide in the description below. All right, let's look at our art kit count. Our art kit count, we are at 308 art kits, which equals about $4,622 of total impact for Give Kids Art. So this is awesome. Again, we're only on day 9. I suspect that we're going to start seeing some snowballing happening here with some of these YouTube subscribers and the download of the self-critique, so I'm looking forward to that. So let's just keep this engine rolling for day 10 tomorrow. If you've got a twist or a challenge that you want to throw at me to see if you can make my life more difficult, or if there's something you want to learn, go ahead and put that twist in the comment section below. I'm really enjoying how these twists are shaping the critiques. So thank you for being creative. You guys are awesome, and I'll see you tomorrow on day 10.